It is really good, actually, to be back with you all this morning. 9 years ago now, Vicky and I, with our kids, with Beth, who some of you know, and many of you will know, and with a couple of others, we came to Lincoln, once we'd found out where it actually was, to plant and see grow here a church family. Now, every 7 to 10 years, vicars get to take a sabbatical, and so over the last 3 months, Vicky and I have taken some time to rest, but also to reflect and reset a little bit. And a massive thanks to Ben and to all the team, but also to all of you, because in this time you've really been family, stepped up, stepped in, and supported and cared for one another. But if we could just give Ben and the team just a round of applause, because they've taken so much on. But one of the many things that's really struck me as I've been off, and it hit me significantly as I sat where you are last week for the first time in 3 months, is that as good as it was to get some rest, some holiday, to step out of usual routines, the thing that I actually missed the most about church was PCC meetings. Was just the sense of week in, week out, Sundays and in the week, being part of church family, being tangibly connected to a church family. And it was so good just to sit there last week and see old faces and see new faces. I love that someone came up to me and said, "Are you new here?" I mean, lots of people said that as a joke, but actually one or two just came and said that really genuine. And I love that since I've been away, the church family has welcomed new people in. And it's a bunch of random people, but connected through one another because of Jesus. And for me, it's so easy, I've realized, to get distracted in all the busyness of church life from what it means to actually be church, to be a family that loves God and loves one another. And then I was here again on Wednesday night as our Alpha course started. And it was great to be around and catch up with a few more church family, but actually there was a sense of a whole new load of church family coming in. I'm not sure they'd call themselves that necessarily, but the room was full of about 80, 90 people. And already just in our little small groups, we began chatting to complete strangers. There was just already that sense of connection, of family for everyone that was beginning to develop. And so the Bible reading that we've chosen today, and we're going to start a little three-week mini-series called Family for Everyone, looking at our vision and our values. And the reading we've chosen for today is the story of Ruth from the Old Testament, before Jesus was born. And then we're going to have a little reading from the Gospel of John in the New Testament, which is all about who Jesus is. So we're going to watch the video first, and then Gabriel's going to come up and he's going to bring us our reading.
Stories of the Bible. Ruth and Naomi. This is Naomi, who was a Jewish woman from Bethlehem in Judah. Naomi's husband took her and her 2 sons to live in a country called Moab because there was a famine in Judah, meaning there wasn't enough food for them to eat. While they were in Moab, Naomi's husband died, and her sons married 2 Moabite women named Orpah and Ruth. But then Naomi's sons died, leaving Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth alone. Naomi heard that God had blessed his people in Judah by giving them good crops for food again.
Let's go!
So Naomi took her 2 daughters-in-law and set out for Judah.
Wait.
On the way, Naomi told her daughters-in-law to go back to their mothers' homes. They all cried, and then Ruth and Orpah told Naomi that they wanted to go with her to her people. But Naomi told them to go home and marry other men. They all cried again, and Orpah said goodbye. Ruth clung tightly to Naomi, though. Naomi told her that she should go like Orpah did. But Ruth said, "Don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." When Naomi saw that Ruth was set on going with her, she said nothing more. So Ruth and Naomi went back to Judah. When the people in Bethlehem saw Naomi, they were excited.
Hey, Naomi.
But Naomi said, "Call me Mara, for the Almighty has made life very bitter for me." When Ruth and Naomi returned, it was harvest time in Bethlehem. Ruth went to gather grain in the field of a man named Boaz. Boaz treated Ruth with kindness and made sure that she and Naomi had food from the fields. Naomi heard of this and told Ruth that Boaz was a close relative of Naomi's husband, so he could be her husband.
Okay.
Ruth went to Boaz and told him that he was her family's redeemer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Boaz then put everything in order to take Ruth as his wife. Ruth and Boaz had a son named Obed. Naomi cared for Obed as if he were her own. Obed went on to have a son of his own named Jesse, and he had a son named David, who would be the great king of Israel who defeated a giant named Goliath. And many, many years later, Ruth and Boaz's descendants would include Jesus,
Hey-o!
the Savior of the world.
John chapter 3 verses 14 to 15. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example that you also should do as I have done to you.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. Wonderful. Go and take a seat. So Ruth, don't know if you followed all the family tree in that video, but Ruth was born in a land called Moab, which meant she was a Gentile, which meant that she was from a people who were kind of hostile to God, who weren't at that time part of the family of God. But what I love about this story is that it shows that God himself wants everyone in his family. And he chooses to work through everyone, regardless of their age, regardless of their gender, regardless of their nationality, regardless of their background. Everyone is part of the family. And then, as well as Ruth, we also meet Naomi, along with her husband and two sons. Now, they were part of God's family, but they moved from Bethlehem to Moab because there was a famine. One of Naomi's sons ends up marrying Ruth. Now, fast forward 10 years later, and sadly, all the men in the family have died. And that just left Ruth and Naomi, and you'll see there's another lady called Orpah. But left Ruth and Naomi, two women who'd come from totally different lands. And in those days, it was devastating that all the men in the family had died, because it meant for Ruth and Naomi, they were now in a nun family. They hadn't got a family to belong to. That meant they couldn't provide for themselves. That meant they were completely dependent on others. That meant they were facing starvation maybe, or maybe having nowhere to live. And the obvious thing to do would have been for Naomi and Ruth to separate and each go back to their own countries and to try and find something there. But what happens instead in this book of Ruth, this lovely story of God's love at work, establishing a family for everyone, is that they come together. First, Ruth shows incredible courage and love and loyalty and commits to stay with Naomi, her mother-in-law. That's quite a feat. And we read in chapter 1, verse 16 to 17, but Ruth said, "Don't force me to leave you. Don't make me go home." And I love this. "Where you go, I go. Where you live, I'll live. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. Where you die, I'll die. And that's where I'll be buried. So help me, God. Not even death itself is going to come between us. It's such a good definition of what it means to be close in a family for everyone. Where you go, I'll go. Where you die, I'll die. Like, I'm all in. This relationship, I'm committing 100% to you. You may not be flesh and blood, but I'm going to commit to you. I'm going to choose to commit to you and be family. And then later on in the story, we see Boaz, this man who had great compassion and care and love for Ruth. And he joins her in family, and that makes the family even stronger. And so what we end up with is this mixed and blended family. But a family, because of that ultimately points to Jesus. How do we know it points to Jesus? Well, if we look in Matthew, the first book of the New Testament, and read Matthew 1:15, there's this long family tree tracing from Jesus back all the way where he came from, the family tree. And in that family tree, we see Ruth's name mentioned. And if I've worked this out correctly, and I might not have done, Ruth turns out to be the great-great-great-great-grandmother of Jesus. She's connected to Jesus, this weird blended family that comes together that weren't flesh and blood but committed to one another. It points to Jesus, and from this family line comes Jesus himself. Joel, can I just grab you up here a moment? So I'm Jim, and Joel is in my family. Joel is my son. So we're just going to try and just grow out the family a little bit here, Joel. So could you choose someone who you're related to come up?
Mum.
Mum, could you come up? So this is Vicky. She's my wife, and Joel's mum. They're part of my family. But Joel, could you also choose an adult who you're not related to, but you know who really cares for you?
Kath.
Kath, could you come up? So we're not related to Kath. Kath is Joel's youth leader, and so she cares for him and therefore is part of the family. Right, Joel, could you now choose choose another child who you see every Sunday?
Harry.
Harry, could you come up? So Harry's definitely not related because he supports Derby County, and we wouldn't allow that in our house. But you can see the family is growing. Vicky, could you choose someone else who maybe has been around not necessarily all the 9 years, but quite a lot of the 9 years, who you know, who's smiley, who's always lovely?
Gosh, so much choice. I'm going to choose Rosemary.
Okay, Rosemary, could you come up? Lovely. Okay, so again, we're not related to Rosemary, but she's part of the family here. Vicky, could you also choose another child who you've seen grow up right from being small in this church?
I'd like to choose Destiny. Is that okay?
Okay, Destiny, up you come. Wonderful. And we could keep going, and we could keep going, and we could keep going, actually until all of you were up here. And if you look at this bunch of people, if you look around at yourselves, go and just take a quick look, see if you can spot the most random person. Don't say who it is, but see if you can spot the most random person in the room. But this bunch of people is a bunch of random people made up of all ages, background, nationalities. And on the face of it, you may look and say, do you know, there's no family resemblance there at all. But you know, one of the great themes through the Bible, starting right at the Garden of Eden, is that God created us, yes, to be connected to Him, but actually also to be connected to one another as family, providing love and care and support. And often family units are bound together by genetics or maybe sometimes by legal documents. But you know, as we go through the Bible, some of the most beautiful relationships in the Bible are like the story of Ruth. where God draws unlikely people, different people together to form family. And we heard from the reading, Gabriel brought us, and Jesus goes on to say that if anyone knows him, they're connected not just to him, but to one another. He says, love one another as I have loved you. And then finally, we get to the very last book of the Bible. Do you know what it is?
Revelation.
Very good. Glad you did that, otherwise you'd have been showing me up as a parent. We get to Revelation, and in Revelation it paints this picture, and it paints this picture of what his kingdom will look like, a vision of this family reaching its end. And John, the writer of Revelation, says, I saw a huge crowd, too huge to count. Everyone was there. All nations, all tribes, all tongues, all races, all languages, and they were standing dressed in Derby County snow, dressed in white robes and waving palm branches, standing before Jesus and praising him. It's a picture of family, a family for everyone, standing in the love and presence of Jesus who unites them as one. And we're part of that. We're part of what will end up in that picture in Revelation. We're part of this growing family, and we're a family for everyone. I'm going to ask these people to sit down because they're feeling very awkward by now. And we're just going to watch a little video that Kath's put together that just says a little bit about our vision, about what it means here at St. Swithin's to be part of a family for everyone. And they've just got a couple more practical things to say, but let's have the video.
As we turn 9, we can celebrate how God has been growing a family for everyone.
One church with 3 congregations. But that's not the full story. We are one family, 2 churches.
We are part of an extended family of 4 churches and 9 congregations.
With Ben and Juliet preparing to plant again in the next couple of years.
But our family is even wider with those who have trained here to lead other churches across Lincolnshire.
We are part of a growing family for everyone that goes across our diocese, our nation, and across the world.
We have millions of brothers and sisters in the world because of Jesus Christ.
We are a family. A family for everyone, a family that loves, supports, nurtures and cares for one another.
It's a family that is growing. It's a family of love. It's a family with room for many more.
We are a family for everyone.
So we are family here. But that's not the whole picture. And what God is beginning to do and has been doing through the ages and will bring to completion is this family, this weird mix of people who choose to commit to one another, who choose to say to one another, where you go, I'll go. Where you live, I'll live. Where you die, I'll die. It's a family that points to Jesus. And so as we look at this year ahead, this 10th year, we want to be a church this year, particularly, where we focus and discover more deeply what does it mean to be family, where we say to one another, where you go, I go, where you live, I'll live. Your people are my people, your God is my God, where you die, I'll die, and that's where I'll be buried. So help me, God, because looking at you lot, we're going to need God's help, right? And myself as well. But not even death is going to come between us. Not disagreements, not we don't get on, not even death itself are we going to let come between us. We want to be a family for everyone that points to Jesus. And so what would happen if each one of us had that mindset that the person sat next to you, behind you, the person who sat 3 rows back, who kind of gives you an awkward smile every Sunday, but you've never really talked to? What if we understood that St. Faith's down the road is not another church, but is part of the family? What if we understood that as we sent Matt and Nay and others out to plant, that they're not just another church, they're part of our family, that the churches down the road aren't just another church, they're part of, you get the idea. What if we had that mindset that we're part of a family? Might that change our understanding of the way we view and the way we engage with this thing that we call church? That rather than seeing church as something we do on a Sunday morning, sat in rows listening to some guy drone on, we were hoping he'd be better after 3 years rest. That actually is 3 years. That would have been good. 3 months. 3 months rest. Rather than that, actually, that primarily we see it as family. Going deeper with one another, welcoming one another, looking out for the person on the edges who's maybe struggling to fit in and be part of things. What if we could do that with one another? And we do all kinds of things to help with that, big lunches, midweek groups. This year we want to do some stuff where we do some deeper teaching series and other times as well. But what I love the most is when actually we just hear little stories of like, well, this group met out there, or people come and say, I hope it's okay, but a few of us are meeting. It's not an official small group, but is that okay? It's like, of course that's okay. That's family, praying with one another, inviting one another around to each other's houses, all those kinds of things. We want to be a family that's for everyone because it's the model that Jesus gives us. But we want to be a family with open edges. This isn't the extent of the family. There's so many more people out there that God loves to bring into his family and wants to use us to do so. We had Alpha this week. There's still time to come along on Wednesday if you'd like to. Love your neighbor. The youth down in the West End, the Western Youth Club, people are inviting friends. It's growing. There's so many things that we want to be a family that isn't just cliquey and cut off, but extends welcome and hospitality to everyone. We'll talk about that a bit more next week. So our vision here is to be a family for everyone. A family of random people, made up of people who are encountering the love of the Father, learning together to live like Jesus, and who as a result can't help but go and welcome others into the family. And that's the way we'll see lives and communities transformed as we love, live, and go. Amen.